And actually, they have this in almost every ethnic background. It's about a peddler who basically loses his job because they opened up the Buttercross Square Market or another central market. And then he goes away somewhere from his hometown to hear some good news. And when he gets there, he really doesn't find anything out until finally one of the shopkeepers said, I think you should go home. And he goes home to find a treasure, which is something we all do. We all find a treasure. He went around and he would gather things from people in the town, people that were busy making things inside their home or inside a workshop. And he would go around and he would peddle them to the other people. And then he could go back and he could give them news. So a lot of times he was like a minstrel. When they opened up the central market in the center of town, it basically put the peddler out of a job because people were peddling their own wares. They didn't need the middleman. So he did become like the minstrel because he sang songs of the happenings of the day, kind of like an early newscaster. So when you went to buy your goods at the central market, you could listen to the minstrel. Many times cities in Europe had a wall built around them. And so fresh fruits and vegetables and dairy and meats, they came from outside farmers. Things were sold at the central market like a huckster, and in this way the minstrels could stand near the market and relay the news. So they kind of went from being the middleman to having a whole new job. It was a way of peddling, but you see, everybody wanted to hear the latest news.
I was a minstrel. Easy job and an interesting job. I just want to talk a little about the musical minstrel. And in the 1800s, I'm going to talk about, they would travel from village to village, and they had two roles. One was to entertain, and the other was to gather news and also spread the news. If I was a minstrel, I'd be in Lehighton here, I'd be talking to folks and finding out, hey, what's the latest, what's going on? And this is what I heard when I was just over in Esquahome. These are the happenings. And they would also entertain, and you would think, well, how would they support themselves? They may stay for a while and stay in someone's house, get meals, entertain, and work that way. And they would also, if they were songwriters, or if they knew songwriters, they would also sell music. At that time, called broadsides, and this is just a sheet music piece that I picked up, probably from around 1955. So they would do that. They would sell that. So this is a song that they would play to entertain. It's called Wildwood Flower. So now, getting back to the news, in 1882, living here, there was something going on in Missouri, and there was a bank robber and a train robber, and it was a story of bit about their life and also their death. Oh, Jesse James.
across the ocean, many times settlements died out because the people coming over were not farmers. Imagine that. They sent city people over. So they weren't farmers. As the colonies grew here, the trades were practiced out of their homes. They bartered and they traded. Villages and towns grew, and then cities popped up. Large cities couldn't have a central market because they were so expansive. Cities were made up of neighborhoods, ethnic neighborhoods. So what was sold in an Italian market may not have been to the taste of the Polish people. Different neighborhoods catered to their ethnic inhabitants, and little stores spread around to take care of their people. Now, please don't take offense to what I'm going to say next. When small towns popped up in the shadows of the cities, the suburbs became quite the place to be. The time is around the 1950s, and I am not going to sugarcoat history. I am going to tell you just the way it was. The men are at work. Their wives are more than likely at home, raising the children and caring for the house. That's what they did. Corner stores have been around for a while, but at this point they appeared more prevalent. This is the time not necessarily because of ethnic neighborhoods, but there was a simpler answer. It's because there was only one car in the family. And guess who used it? Oh yes, the man to go to work. Which left the woman to her own devices to get and make the food for supper. Corner stores were always within walking distance of their home. Mom could go to the store while the children were at school, or if she had little ones, she could push the stroller with the baby, or she could walk the toddler to the store, because they were close and convenient. That's the way it worked.
My part of the program now, talking about the corner stores, Kathy's going to tell you all about the interesting facts of the corner stores. And she said, oh yeah, there's some music with this. I was thinking of the corner stores as I was growing up, and it would have been during the 60s for me. And I can remember going into a corner store, behind that cashier was something like this, or something even bigger. And we're inside here. This doesn't work. I can't get a station anymore that has music. I could only get talk radio. But you get the idea. You transistor radio, and they were playing the popular songs of the day. So what I'd like to recreate today would be starting in the late 50s with the song. And I kind of want you to, hopefully you'll remember some of these songs and it'll bring back something, might have been in a corner store that you heard. This song is from 1957, and it was made famous by the Everly Brothers. And popular music at that time, you really couldn't go without the Everly Brothers. And it doesn't talk about a corner store, but it comes pretty close in living in Lehighton. It talks about an incident that happened at a drive-in. And we have a drive-in right here, so this is pretty cool. I'm sure you've heard it. And so you need to know introduction. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Both sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie and me. The movie's over, it's 4 o'clock and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are you gonna tell your mom? What are you gonna tell your mom? What are you gonna tell your friends when they say, ooh, la la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, I told your mama that you'd be in by 10. Now, Susie, baby, it looks like we goofed again. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. We gotta go home. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up. The movie, it wasn't so hot. It didn't have much of a plot. We fell asleep. Our Bruce is cooked. Our reputation is shot. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are you gonna tell your mama? What are you gonna tell your mom? What are you gonna tell your friends when they say, ooh la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
I grew up in the Heights section. The reason they call it the Heights section because it's located above Bridge Street, which means to get up there, you need to walk up a hill. To get down from there, you need to walk down a hill. Either way. There's my house. There's First Ward School. I had to walk down and up to the school. I had to walk down and up to get to the house. I had to walk uphill both ways. That's the way it was. But you know, instead of coming down 3rd Avenue, walking all the way out 2nd, up to Allen and around, well, that was the long way. So we came down the hill, crossed over Bridge Street, and we went into Heiser's store. Ward Heiser had a store, and we would walk in the front door, head to the back of the store, walk around the butcher block, and go out the back door. We would go out into the alley and up to the alley to my friend Carla's grandparents. And we would walk through the yard and up the steps to 3rd Street, where we crossed the street and went through Aunt Hank's yard. How Aunt Hank got that name, I have no idea. On the way back, we just came back the same way, just kind of followed your steps. However, if you got in trouble at school, it's amazing how they all knew it. So you come back and there's Aunt Hank going, you're going to get it when you get home. You know, then you go across to the grandparents, they're going, ooh, your mother's mad at you. And you walk in the back of Heiser's store, and you get there, there's a whole bunch of people standing around going, boy, you're really in for it now. And let me tell you, we didn't want to go home, because they all knew you were going to get in a big peck of trouble. So Heiser's was one that I can remember very gingerly. There were others that were around before my time, like Eckert's and Leffler's and Peter's. But the 3 that I remember the most were Heiser's, Shoemaker's, and Kirkendall's. Heiser's definitely the most personal, because I was allowed to go there by myself at about 5 years of age. I would go down to the bottom there, and you really had to look to cross Bridge Street because there were no stop signs on Bridge Street. So you came in like from 9th Street, you could go all the way down to 209. No stop signs. It was like a raceway. So you really had to be careful to cross that. My mother shopped at Genetti's every Friday. It is now Mallard Market. We went to it when it was Genetti's, later on the Golden Key, now it's Mallard. She did that on Friday mornings because she had a cleaning lady who doubled as a babysitter. But every Saturday morning, I was sent to Heiser's to pick up a few items. One of them being smoked sausage. I did that for years. After a while, I got a little tired of it. I'd say, oh, can't we have some fresh sausage? My mother would relent and said, okay, bring home fresh sausage. But the next week, it was back to smoked sausage. Needless to say, I can count on one hand and have fingers left over the number of times I have bought smoked sausage as an adult. Now, a lot of times there was a house attached to the store. The owners lived in that house. The 3 that were near the Heights were examples of this. So you usually grew up with the children of the family that lived there. They were not only store owners and businessmen, they were your neighbors.
Where were you in 1962 when Bob Dylan came out with this song? How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seasons must a white dove sail
memories of some people. And I asked Ward Heiser's daughter, and she gave me a few nice memories. Ward was a lifelong resident of Lehighton, graduating in 1934. In World War II, he was in the Marine Corps. He served with the 1st Division during the invasion of Okinawa and the occupation of Japan and China. Upon his discharge and return to his hometown, he purchased the George Rook grocery store that was being run by Ken Snyder. He operated the store at 2nd and Bridge Street for 40 years. The family lived above the store. Ward's wife and daughters never worked in the store. He had a loyal employee named Hazel. She was a cutie pie. She was very pleasant, yeah. He also hired local high school boys to help deliver groceries. Ward was a big believer in giving back to the community. He sponsored many local athletic teams, and he was extremely generous to people when they were out of work. That is a string that goes through with all of the local stores. When friends of his daughters came over to the house, he treated them all to a bag of penny candy and a soda of their choice. I guess you wanted to be your Heiser girls' friends, didn't you? He worked every day except Wednesday afternoons, when most businesses shut down, and that's the truth. I grew up here in Lehighton, and Wednesday afternoon, you couldn't do anything in Lehighton because everything shut down. The excuse that I was given was they used to work right through till Saturday, and they'd only have Sunday off. Everywhere else you worked 5 days and had 2 days off. So they took Wednesday afternoon off because usually they were working on Saturday. That was their rationale. So he usually did not work on Wednesday afternoons and Sundays, but at those times, he cleaned. He did bookwork. He ordered supplies. He would order halves of beef and pork, and he kept them in the big walk-in cooler. He cut the meat on a large butcher block, as requested by the customers. Oh, I'll take that piece right there. Sure, why not? So you got what you wanted. It wasn't prepackaged that you had to look through it and say, I like that one. You cut it to how you wanted it. At the week's end, whatever was left over was made into a delicious meal by Ward's wife, who was a remarkable cook. Fresh meat, dairy, coffee beans ground up in the grinder, penny candy, soda, bread. Ward was always in a fresh white apron every day, and he helped everyone in whatever way he could. I remember being fascinated by how he counted out change. You bought something, and you give him $1, and he'd start going, and that makes that, and that makes that. How do you do that? And so he explained it to me. He taught me how to do it. Best math lesson ever. I remember it because I am functionally illiterate in math. It's the only thing I ever learned in math that I still keep because I do it to this very day. Somebody gets something at the library, I count out the change. And I still get people go, wow, how did you do that? I learned that from Ward Heiser.
Could be 1960. Some of these stores, you might have heard the Drifters do this song. And I was more familiar with it in 1968, Gin in the Americas. This magic moment, different and so new, was
local shoemaker had a store a half a block down from Kaiser's. So technically, I guess you couldn't call it a corner store because it wasn't on a corner. It was half a block down. It was on Bridge Street, and people stopped in for needed items just as they did at any corner store. But children, for several decades, basically new generations, I went there, my kids went there, for candy and soda. And Mr. Shoemaker really didn't change much. As a child, I thought he was old. My children thought he was ancient. And he hadn't changed much since my childhood. I think I remember seeing him in a nursing home. And he hadn't changed much since my childhood. What many people don't know was what set shoemakers apart from most little stores was Grandma's potato chips. Grandma's potato. This is a wax bag, by the way. This is not one of those new modern bags with the silver lining and the gas pumped in to keep everything fresh. Let me tell you, when the potato chips were made, you better buy them, you better eat them, because after a while they're not going to last in here. This is what set him apart from everywhere else. Every so often he would back his car out of the garage. And then he would sweep it out, and he would make potato chips right there in the garage. Nice place to make potato chips, right? So they had to be bought and eaten soon after they were made, but they were good, if you can, especially if you got a fresh batch. They were absolutely wonderful. They didn't have a long shelf life, so if you knew he was making them, you ran down and you bought yourself a bag of them. Can you imagine that process today? I think the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health just might have something to say about it.
When I lived on the Heights, I missed the chips. This next song was written in 1967 by John Hartford, but it was later made a hit by Glenn Campbell. Gentle on My Mind. So knowing that your door is always open and your path is always warm, that makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind the couch. And it's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bounds, and the ink stains that are dried upon some mind, that keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory, keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the roots and ivy planted on the columns behind me. And it's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds, and the ink stains that are dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory, keeps you ever gentle on my mind.
When I would visit my grandmother, who lived on South 5th Street, she would send me to the corner store closest to her house, which was Seminoff's. It was located at the corner of 4th and Iron Streets. Joe Seminoff was a veteran of World War II, like Ward Heiser. His arm and his leg were severely injured from German artillery at the Battle of Bastogne. As a result, he never drove. Joe rented and then bought the corner store and ran it from 1949 to 1968. Initially, he commuted by bus from Mach Chunk to Lehighton, but then bought a house on South 5th Street. You could buy a Lewis soda for 5 cents, and 7-Up, 7 cents. Isn't that special? Large Miller pretzel sticks and other various pretzels were loose. You put them in a paper bag and you waited. Nabisco cookies were also sold loose as well. Potatoes were bagged in 5, 7, 10, 12, and 15-pound quantities. Eggs were never refrigerated. Never. They were loose in a box. Cereal boxes stretched all the way up to the ceiling, and you used a hand pincher to get the box down from the top. He closed the store around 9:30 each night, pulling the shutters closed. Joe was closed for business on Sunday, but every few months he went in and put on rubber boots and got a long brush and oiled the wood plank floors. At Christmas, he made bags with cans of food and fruit and delivered the bags to those in need, usually senior citizens in the neighborhood. When the zinc company went on strike, he carried many customers on the books until they were able to pay. He sold the store to Bob and Nola Cupp around 1969. He went to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives and served from 1968 to 1976. Here's a unique little note. Ward Heiser's daughter, Evelyn, married Joe Seminoff's son, Gene, and they helped supply some of this information. And they are the proud offspring of store owners. Many fond memories.
That song was originally written by Fred Neal in the early 60s, and it wasn't much of a hit. But 1967, it was recorded by Harry Nielsen. And then later on in the 60s, near the end, it was used in the movie Midnight Cowboy. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Dustin Hoffman was in that. And in doing the research, just learning this song, I remember hearing it maybe in a corner store, who knows, but it had such a cool sound. Everybody's talking at me, don't hear a word they're saying, only the echoes of my mind. People stop and stare, and I we all had to, everyone went crazy as far as wigs. There's another one. And the leader just turned, believe it or not, just turned 80 the other day. So I'm talking about Paul McCartney and the Beatles. So, we were all crazy when I was growing up in 5th grade. And everybody had to get an instrument, everybody had to buy a guitar, and that was just a rage. And now that I'm old, I just learned this song a couple of years ago. Tuning, but last November we were in Nashville, went to the Ryman Auditorium. So you had stars there, and every song they stop and tune for about 5 minutes. But with the song, but it's important. Get older, losing my hair many years from now. Will you still send me Valentine, birthday greetings, bottle of wine? Then I'm just 43. Would you lock the door? Would you still need me? Would you still be me when I'm 64? You'll be older too. And if you say the word, I could stay with you. I could be handy with you when your lights are gone. You could dip sweat by the fireside. Sunday mornings go for a ride. To the garden, dig the weed. Who could ask for more? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? And every summer we could rent a cottage at the Isle of Love. It's not too near. We shall sprint and save. Grandchildren on your knee. Vera, Chuck, and Dave. Send me a post, drop me a line, stating a point of view. Indicate you slice it what you mean to say. If you're sincerely wasting away, give me an answer, fill in the form, mine forevermore. Will you still need me? Will you still need me when I'm 64?
Kid, oh my goodness, 64, that is eons away. And now I'm over 64. Yes, yes. The other store of notoriety near the Heights was in Kirkendall's, also not on a corner. We're a couple doors down from the corner. All the stores had been known for penny candy and miscellaneous grocery items, but this store had another purpose for us kids on the Heights. We kids on the Heights, we could go right down to high school, we could go right to Shoemaker's. You had to do a little extra effort to walk up that extra block to Kirkendall's. Just past Allen Street. On a hot summer evening, we would go to Kirkendall's for ice cream, or, better yet, snow cones. Oh my goodness, that was an amazing thing. None of the other corner stores had snow cones. They put the ice in the top, and it went, and then they packed it in there with that nice round thing in the little cone cup. And then you could pick your flavor, and they would put it on. However, following my way of doing things, I usually had to mix 2 or more flavors. Just just like I do with my salad dressings today too. There's never a salad dressing that I say, oh, I'll put that with that. No. That's what they did with my snow cones too. In 1923, Frank Kirkendall started his milk processing dairy behind his home on South 2nd Street. He later started a retail store and then constructed a more modern one attached to his home. He sold groceries and his own ice cream. His sons, Richard and William, who were outstanding athletes in high school, became very active in the business, especially after World War II. The Kirkendalls pushed the sale of their ice cream products, and they even had 3-wheeled scooters, and it had a freezer unit between the back 2 wheels. They were driven around the town to all the different neighborhoods. Paul Smith, the beloved music teacher and band leader, actually had a job riding around selling ice cream from one of those scooters. I remember him. I remember him coming around, and when I got into junior high school and I had music with Mr. Smith, I walked in and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. And I walked up, not that I would do it in front of anybody else, I said, "Did you used to deliver ice cream from Kirkendall's?" He said, "Yes, Kathy, and I came to your house. You were a regular customer." So I remembered him, and he remembered me. Yes, he did. This way, the kids didn't necessarily have to come for the ice cream because the ice cream came to them. And they came before Mr. Softy ever came around. Or what was the other one? Chili Willy. Yes, Chili Willy with the music.
Now, last song won in 64. That was on Sgt. Pepper in 1967. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band released 55 years ago. That album came out. It was written by Paul McCartney. It was the first song he ever wrote in 1956 when he was only 14. So when you think, what was he thinking of when he was 14 writing a song about 164? He probably thought, all those old timers. Another star, another person that was popular, another writer, piano player, and singer in the 60s, just turned 80 as well this past year, Carole King. And she wrote this next song in 1960, and it was a hit for the Shirelles. She wrote the song with Jerry Goffin. So in 1960, you would have, wherever my little radio, if you would have heard that in any of the stores Kathy's talking about in 1960. So music through the 60s was popularized by the transistor radio because then you could take that music anywhere you wanted to go. And teens at that time, they could have their own music and they could listen to whatever they wanted and they could take it. 1971, Carole King decided, I'm going to record that on my own album. And that album that she did in 1971 was called Tapestries, which now in 1970, the transistor radio and AM and probably the corner stores lost a lot of that. FM radio then became popular in the 70s. So this is a combination, a mismatch of Shirelles' version or Carole King's version. To make your mind completely, you give your love so sweetly. Tonight, the light of love is in your eyes. But will you love me tomorrow? Is this the lasting treasure? Or just a moment's pleasure? Can I believe a man spoken. You say that I'm the only one, but will my heart be broken when the night morning sun? I have to know that your love is love I can be sure of. So tell me now, and I won't ask it again. Will you still love me tomorrow? Will you still love me tomorrow?
Okay, I just wanted to talk for a minute about my great-grandfather's store, which would have been, his name was J.J. or John Hutz. And his store was down on First Street. I believe it was at 128 North First Street. It was actually a cigar and candy store. And he ran that store until he died in 1937. At that point in time, his son took over, whose name was also John. And I'm only saying this because my mother, who's 92, asked me to, because these were her relatives. He actually almost ran that store into the ground, and they were suffering quite some financial setbacks due to the younger John running his business. So it was turned over to his sister May, who was living in Philadelphia at the time. She had been divorced from her first husband, which was quite a thing, I guess, in 1938, 1939. So she returned to Lehighton and ran the store quite successfully, and then married her second husband, which would have been Jimmy Whitehead. So when I talk about my aunt and my uncle Jimmy, technically they would be my great aunt and my great uncle. So what I remember of the store, and like Kathy had said, a lot of people lived in the same building, same place as their store. So you would walk in, and from the front door, you could look down the hall, and there would be my Uncle Jimmy smoking a cigar, sitting in a lounge chair with one of those big smoking stands next to him. That's pretty much what I remember of him. I remember my Aunt May did a lot of the work around the store, and it always had that very much, I can't think of the word I want to use to describe it, but the mix of tobacco and candy kind of all together. So it had its own kind of pungent smell. So it was quite a store. All of the cigars, cigarettes, and so on were on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side was all the candy. And magazines, newspapers. In fact, I don't know if this is actually where my parents met. My father actually delivered papers from the time he was 9 years old till he was 18 years old for the Princes. And my mother, being that May was her aunt, spent time working in the store as well. So whether they actually met there, they said that they met in high school, but if you look at the time period, they probably actually met there. Unfortunately, they're both in assisted living right now. The things are still alive, they're 92. Memory's not what they used to be. But my mother very much wanted me to tell you that John Jr. almost ran that store into the ground. Thanks to everybody else, it survived. But it used to be, lots of fun. My cousins and I would, go in there. They also had, besides all the candy and all the tobacco, they had some of those novelty toys, so like cap guns, comic books, just all kinds of just those little toys you could buy for a penny or 5 cents, 10 cents. So we used to always take home all of these things. We didn't have to pay for them, but other people did. The one thing that I remember, which is the whole point that I wanted to tell you, was my thing that I remember the most was actually this bubble gum machine. And I had told people about this bubble gum machine for years. And it sat on the counter. It was a penny gumball machine, and it was a clown head. And it was really creepy looking. And actually, a lot of people were afraid of it, including my cousin, who to this day has this bubble gum. It's kind of a bone of contention because I always liked it. I thought it was fun. My parents would always give me a penny to put in there, and you hold the clown's nose over, and your gumball would come out. I thought it was fun. I never realized that it creeped out all of my cousins who were afraid of it. So how in the world my cousin who was afraid of it ended up with it, I don't know. But to this day, it's in a closet with a sheet over it. And I'm trying to get that for about 3 decades now, and we still won't give it up. So I found one on eBay, but it's $300. I'm going to wait it out. But it was a great place, and I wish I could have shared the bubblegum machine with you. I tried to get them to come and bring it with them, but it's probably so there's my story.
In the store business in 1928. He also had a bakery route for several years, selling baked goods from his truck. In 1938, Cal and his wife, the former Rebecca Notestein, reopened and remodeled the store on the corner of 5th and Cole Streets. In April of 1958, Cal's son Robert became the proprietor. Many people not only remember Bobby Hawes, but his wife Jerry as well. She was a beloved Girl Scout leader for decades. I found this out today. When you leave here and you walk out the front door of the mausoleum, look to your right across the roadway here. You'll see a black stone that has Hawes on it. And when you look around on the front of it, there is a picture of Hawes' market on it. And it's one of the best ones I've ever seen. Beautiful picture. Down on the bypass, on the corner before Domino's. I'm sorry, you have to be really old to remember this. You see the remnants of the foundations of the Progressive Merchants, which was located on what was called at one time, not the bypass, Railroad Street. On April 26, 1929, it was noted in the paper that the Progressive Merchants Association held its 5th annual banquet in Engine Company No. 2 Fire Hall. 400 members and guests attended. Wow. They were the wholesalers and provided the corner stores with canned goods as well as fresh produce. George Freeby was the president of the organization, and later, longtime salesman Walter Regal.
Now we'll go to 1967. Sure, in all the stores, you heard this band was taking the nation by storm. Hollywood's producers were trying to keep up with the Beatles, so they thought they would take a TV show and get some guys that look good and maybe they could sing, but I'm not really sure if they could play instruments or not. It would make a TV show, and I grew up watching that TV show, and they made a ton of hits. That band would be the Monkees. It's called Daydream Believer. Oh, I need the wings of the bluebird as she sings. 6 o'clock alarm would never ring, but it rings and I rise, the white this and put this together, it was kind of like, wow, so many 60 songs that I grew up with and never really played. These songs, none of these songs are in my book, so they were all learned. Some of them are a little choppy, so come back again at 5 o'clock. Some of those first songs will sound a little bit better, I'll guarantee you. But this next song was written by Neil Diamond in 1967 as well. This is by the Stowe Capitals, Rockin' and Forget. I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else, but not for me. Love was out to get me, that's the way it seems. Disappointment ended on my dream. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace. Doubt in my mind, and I'm in love. I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. That's good because I can't hit those notes. And I thought love was more or less a giving. Seems the more I gave, the less I got. What's the use in trying? All you get is pain. When I needed sunshine, I got rain. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace. No doubt in my mind, and I'm in love. Yeah, I'm a believer, I believe her. All I was perfect and me, that's the way it seemed. Disappointed, haunted on my dream. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace. Doubt in my mind, here it comes. I'm in love. Yeah, I'm a believer, I can leave her if I try. Thank you.
Oh. Today, the skeletons of small stores can be seen as you drive or walk around. Some are homes. Others have new lives with new businesses. Just go up Cole Street from 1st Street to 3rd Street. Hamill's store was on 1st Street, and those of us who are older remember that the steep part between 1st and 2nd Street is called Hamill's Store. Yeah, the young boys in town, they said, that'd be great for sledding. I think they'd be in here somewhere. No, you don't want to go there. Then at the top of 2nd Street, and then at the top of 3rd and Cole, where Deep's Cuts and Pearls was a store owned by Joseph Isenman. He was born in Baden, Germany in 1854. Came to America in 1872. He began working for the Lehigh Valley Railroad and became the night foreman of the Packerton shops. In 1895, he erected the store and operated it until 1900. Then he leased it until 1906 and then regained control of it and operated until the 1930s. Later, and here are some familiar names if you've been listening, George Rook, who previously owned the store at 2nd and Bridge, which later became Heiser's. With the help from George Brown and Ken Snyder, kept that store open until the 1950s. The kids of yesteryear, who are now becoming seniors, we reminisce about our experiences. Penny candy, going for essentials. Sometimes running to the store in the evening in your pajamas to get something so that your mom can pack lunches for the next day for you to go to school. Not having the money and the items were put on the tab. They would be paid at a later date when money was available. Neighbors taking care of neighbors, just like family. Today, there are mini marts, gas stations, and Dollar Generals everywhere. But as much as they dot the landscape and they fill the needs of the people, they lack the familiar family vibe of the corner store.
They were good. The warmer the better.
Yeah, some people like them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You mentioned Kenny Snyder a couple times. He was my uncle. He was married to my Aunt Pauline, who is now, she is going to be 98 years old on September 11th, and she's still living in her own home. And I knew there was an association with, did he own, that's what we're talking about, did he just work for Kaiser?
I think George Rook was his uncle.
Oh, yeah,
George
my-
Rook had owned that
I know that.
store, and then later on, he turned it over to Kenny, and then Kenny.
So Kenny owned it for a while.
Yeah, Kenny ran it for a while, and Kenny turned it over, sold it
To
to
Kaiser.
Kaiser.
Okay.
And I do remember this, and I did not have a clue as to why. But I sing with Stacy on the choir.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Stacy and I are sopranos when I can get up there. She can always.
Well, her mother is my aunt.
She's the voice of-
Stacy's mother and my father were brother and sister.
Okay. Well, according to her, I remember going into Kaiser's store sometimes, and Kenny would be in there.
Mhm.
And I used to think, why? Well, because of being in World War II, he had some back problems. So when Ward was laid up with his back, Kenny would run the store for him.
Okay.
So, but then obviously he had the one up at the top at 3rd and Cole too. He helped run that one until the 1950s.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember going in there and, it was.
So you knew my Uncle Kenny.
Yes, I knew Kenny, oh yeah.
And all summer long at Heiser's, Hazel would sell her tomatoes. We used to go up there for tomatoes all the time.
I
Do you remember that?
going in there and they would have, the bread man would come with different samples. And they would have little loaves about this big of Wonder Bread. And we would take that home and, say, can't we buy Wonder Bread? Well, we should buy Wonder Bread. And my mother would say, no, we get it from the bread man that comes around, which was the cat piece. Yes, and that truck. Yeah, and I remember Kathy learning to drive on the truck. Imagine having to learn to drive on a bread truck.
We had little cupcakes and things too.
Oh,
Drinks stuff.
Oh,
drinks.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So we
And
watched
tasty
for them.
cakes. Oh, yeah, we watched for him. Oh, yeah. And if you had anything left over and you didn't sell it, my mom would send it over the house.
The Kirkendalls lived in Packard, of course, at the Robin Hill in Packerton. And across the street from them was Wayne Romer's store, a little store there. And I remember going there when I was young for penny candy. Wayne Cromer was Sis Kirkendall's father. Yes. Sis Kirkendall, her maiden name was, I don't even know her real name, we all call her Sis. Her maiden name was Cromer. Wayne Cromer was her father. He had that little tiny store, was a corner store. It was right there on 209, across the street from their home.
There was a lot of that back in those days.
They did,
You had
oh, absolutely.
nicknames, and people never knew your real name
No.
because you had a nickname.
Like the arboristers in Packard, there was a book, there was Herb, Herb was actually probably obviously Herbert, but everyone had different nicknames. There was Bertie,
Yeah.
they had all
My
nicknames. I didn't know the names.
grandfather's name was Charles August Hyland, and he went by C. August Hyland because all the boys in his family were named Charles. So the only one that was really called Charles would have been Charles. But my grandfather was Charles August, so they called him Gus. Yeah.
The nickname
It was a marvelous time.
Growing up, because I am older. But I grew up in Nesquehoning, and I lived in Lehighton for the past 32 years. My grandparents lived in June, Florida, so there were many close corner stores there. And the 60s and the time of the corner stores, they were happy times, as everything that Kathy said. And another way, when I was growing up, when I was a young teen, there was a corner store about 2 blocks up the street from my grandmother. And I was allowed to go up there, but it was a different kind of corner store. Yeah, it had penny candy, but it was a hangout, and I was young, and it had what I liked at that time. It had comic books, and it had pinball machines, and it had pool tables. So, and it was a place that at that time to what's the word? I don't want to say mingle, but just to get together and just socialize. And I couldn't wait to go to my grandmother's to go to that store. And I'd also have to, when I'd be there, she would say, go up to the corner store. It was called Helen Bennett's, and get a half pound of white American and a quarter of cheese or a quarter of something else. But they were happy times, and I'll let you. If you want to sing along too. I can hit all the notes in the song. So. Imagine me and you, I do. I think about the day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight. So happy together. And I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say you belong to me. And ease my mind, imagine how the world would be. So very fine, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it was to be the only one for you and me for you. So happy together. Imagine me and you, I do. I think about the day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight. So happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you, no matter how they toss the dice, it was to be the only one for me is you, and you for me. So happy together, and how is the weather? So happy together, here's your part. Ba-ba-ba-ba, 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 ba-ba-ba-ba. And I hope that you leave with some of these songs brought back some memories and you feel good about it because that's what the 60s were to me and corner stores were and the music was. It was all good. I had good feelings towards that. And I tried to pick songs that kind of represent that. So hopefully you go back
And we came in on the younger end of that, so literally I was born in '82, so the only stores I really remember were shoemakers, going to get candy, and Hawes's, because Jerry was my Girl Scout leader, so it's really an era that we kind of missed out on, so I love hearing all these old stories and stuff. And we did put together a little map here. This is by no means a conclusive list or a 100% correct list, because some of these names and dates and things get a little convoluted. So I do invite you to check them out. I mean, this is, almost 50 stores on here, and this is nowhere near some of the information that I was finding. So I hope you will take advantage of that. And for our younger generation or whoever has a smartphone, if you know what the QR codes on here, It does link to a Google map, which I do have photos of a lot of the things that we talked about today in the research that we found, old ads and things. I've been trying to scan them in and attach them with that. So if you go on the Google map from this code on the inside, you'll be able to see some pictures.
The young people, definitely. What we're doing here with our songs and stories in the mausoleum, with your generous donations, we hope to at some point in time have a heritage center here in Lehighton that you can bring those young people to and say, this is what it was. This is where you now go for this, but this is what was here before. We need to preserve and save our history. And that's what we're doing here. So we thank you for your generosity.